I've Here we go with Jamari Peterson. Now, I've known Jamari for quite some time, so I want to give you a proper intro. Because you've been around the space for a ton of years, doing a lot of things. So I want to properly be your hype man here. So Jamari has had years of experience in the decentralized tech space. You built your first startup in 2017 called the Quantum Resistant Ledger, which is super relevant as things continue to accelerate in AI. Under your leadership, they raised $4.1 million, leading to a $100 million plus valuation. You also developed a collateral-free lending solution called the Digital Reserve, highly relevant still, and an innovative gaming mechanism for finite games. As a serial entrepreneur, academic, and public speaker, Jamari brings vision and a strong understanding of the business landscape and an interdisciplinary tech background to the establishment of crypto and blockchain related future. Jamari has he's facilitated and supported the raise of millions of dollars for social enterprises and nonprofit activities at the Oasis Project. He's a PhD candidate at Carnegie Mellon University in engineering and public policy with a focus on risk assessment and system design. Prior to Carnegie Mellon, he received his BS and MBA in strategy and logistics from Howard. Jamari, thanks for your time today. I'd love to dig in.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. I love writing great things about myself and having other people read them. It always feels good. I say, man, I sound great.
You do sound good.
But no, it's really a pleasure to be able to support this. When Nathan, when you first mentioned it, I believe I told you, hey, I'm fully on board having this virtual experience for those who have difficulties getting physically to conferences. This is a great way to get a lot of vital information out to people and kind of create that foundation ground for people to have accessibility to things that are developing, things that are developed, and kind of just be able to learn, experience, and iterate through things. So that's what I'm excited to talk about here, like kind of the things that we're creating between FiHub and Snowball that we believe will be able to enrich the experience of subnets, mainnets, L1s, L0s, just the space in general.
Great.
So yeah, yeah. So I wasn't quite sure if it's more me doing the presentation of it or if it's the dialogue.
Honestly, if you want, you can do a presentation first and clue people in a little bit, and then we can do if you want, I can interrupt you during the dialogue, and
okay, But bodacious. Well, so here's the thing. I guess here's context. So Snowball is a DAO that was created on the Avalanche network a little bit after Pangolin, which was the first exchange what was implemented. And that exchange was one of the first live dApps that was providing utility on the C chain, which is the Ethereum compatible option within the Avalanche network. So therefore, that was kind of bringing a lot of people in. However, the space was a little bit sparse. So there wasn't a lot of other activity, a lot of utilization of assets that were moving onto this very fast chain with quick finality, sub-second finality, and this ability to have subnets and all these other things coming. But there wasn't anything there that was meaty to bite into yet. So me, along with some other people, Abominable Sasquatch, what's that creature? Mr. Yeti, Giraffe, and
a bunch of non-doxed people.
Yes, a bunch of non-dox people, and then me. We launched Snowball as a way of providing yield optimization services, as well as also kind of leading the charge on pushing out the space, expanding what was available on Avalanche. So we created Snowball, which became more of a venture DAO over time because we ended up launching Axial, which was a stable swap. We connected to over 20 different protocols, probably about 100 different assets was connected under us. And that perspective helped us understand is there's a deep fragmentation within our space. And the onboarding and learning process is very difficult. So when you're a new user, you're learning about these new digital assets. Then you have to learn about how you use those assets within our ecosystem. And you're going to maybe 2, 3, 4 different sites to understand, to grasp what's going on. You're having to read Twitter, you have to read Discord, and then you're going to an exchange, then you're going somewhere else to stake it. And that complication really spoke to a need to be able to better aggregate the vital information about assets in a way that's accessible for people, and then being able to execute them. So with that in mind, we said, if we wanted to do that, there's a layer that's missing, an abstraction layer of metadata within our spaces that we need. We currently have this thing called ABIs, which is basically provides a way of us seeing the function calls. But aside from that, there's no deep tagging mechanisms that we have to say if something is verifiable, if is this the right contract, what assets does it interact with, is it verified, where people can actually look at it to prove that that's open source. And all these things cause a lot of phishing attempts to happen. It causes confusion. It causes the difficulty for using. So this kind of thing for us was like, we need to develop a standard for kind of understanding what smart contracts are doing, what assets they're interacting with, what's occurring with them, and that could be the foundation for an abstraction of a user experience that is better for everyone. And that's kind of what FiHub's vision is, and it's coming from the experience with Snowball. So that was the first spiel. I mean, we talked a little bit about who I am, so that'll matter. So FiHub we are working to actually create a dashboard that accelerates people onboarding into the space and becomes a discovery and engagement mechanism for people who are entering into the Web3 space. So we believe that we can help onboard that next million users by using this technology, this open source standard that we're creating to create an improved experience. So like I said, we have the problem of limited open source standards, which causes phishing strategies. And phishing strategies are basically when people like might throw up a random website and get you to click on it, and it looks like the thing that you expect it to be. And then you sign the contract, and then you find out that it does something different than you expected. Or it harvests your information, or they alter a function call internally that looks like it should be right, but it does something different than expected. So people are phishing, and you're the bait. And over $10 billion has been lost to theft and fraud in the space due to kind of like the lack of these open source standards to abstract out, to demonstrate information that people need. So alter function calls exist, and especially as we look at this expansion of subnets, we're going to have subnets that are forking the Move virtual machine. The Landslide is for example, is going to be using the Cosmos the Cosmos IBC, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and we just have Move on too.
And Move it as well. So people are going to be forking and developing these things, right? So there's going to be ones that have a lot of support behind them, very clear audits and very clear open source standards, so that people are contributing, validating things, verifying and testing. But then you might have an upstart who's saying, I'm launching this thing too, except for I'm going to give all the money to 95% to everybody else, and I only take 5% or some other thing, right? And people might test that out, but they might alter a call inside of it, right? And that altered call will send all the money back to them after 30 days, or it might not be transferable under certain conditions. And then the only way you would know that is typically if you're an auditor or you're somebody who's verifying it. But then how do I, as a new user who's trying to investigate this, understand that these calls have been altered and that they've been verified by someone? And that's kind of where the smart contract list, this standard, comes in, by having a way of, when you have established things that work, best practices, having a way to abstract the information out so other people can be able to say, okay, yeah, no, their code has been verified. This function wasn't changed. This subnet does operate at as close as people understand to what this other one is. So altered function calls are going to be very important to understand, especially as we kind of have this explosion of new opportunities and new ways of building between smart contracts and platforms. Phishing attacks, I mentioned those a little bit. Then we have approval concerns. Approval concerns are widely known because essentially, if you approve a smart contract, essentially you're provided the ability to access some digital asset that you're in control of, and for it to use it as it sees fit according to its protocol. So if you have a contract that you're approving, and then you approve an unlimited amount, but you only deposit $10, right? And then eventually you have $1,000 later, and it still has approval for $1 million or unlimited. Well, it can still move that additional $1,000 or $1 million that you brought in later, because you have provided it this unlimited access. Yeah, so making sure that there's some way of of being able to highlight what the approvals are and kind of how those function. That's part of this smart contract list standard, is making sure that people understand like what the functions are, what it does, and things of that nature. So that's kind of the main issues.
Yeah, I just want real quick give a shout out to revoke.cash.
Yes.
They're brilliant. So if anyone's listening out there and they're like, well, how do I know if my wallets are still have permission on random like DeFi contracts? Revoke.cash is great for that.
Yes, no, vital. I use revoke.cash all the time. I basically periodically I just go back and I say, okay, are these things that still need access to my assets? And if so, why? And is there anything underlying it that I should be aware of? Because, for example, there's two main kind of contracts to me. There's contracts that are totally immutable, which means that they're written, they're on chain, and whatever's in them is what it does and what it will forever do. Any condition. Then there's also upgradable contracts, or ones that have proxies. And those ones have these additional interdependencies or interactions that allow code to be altered, changed, update over time to meet maybe the needs of a changing landscape, which is very powerful and important. But however, that means that the things that contract does over time can also change. So that means that you have to be more conscious and aware of what those type of contracts are doing. So a smart contract list also provides the ability to be able to identify and separate the various types of contracts that might exist out there. And that's what the solution is: an open source smart contract list standard that is really an evolution of token lists, which is what Uniswap currently uses to be able to allow people to, in a decentralized way, choose the tokens that they want to be able to operate and interact with. And we should have the same thing for smart contracts: the ability to see the smart contracts, subnets, the functionality that we want to interact with, and which ones we don't, based on parameters that we might have chosen. So currently, the way that FiHub is looking at it, we divide it into 4 areas: the deployment facts, which is like basic information about a smart contract. This typically can be found on chain. So it's like verifiable information that is just aggregated for ease of access. Then you have your ABIs, which is typically the way of interacting with smart contracts when you're talking about like from a browser or Web3 perspective. You're actually having these function calls that you're then sending out to nodes that are then processing. And you're not actually have to see the entire smart contract, but just the actual function call you're using to get whatever action you want to have happen. So having those functions, and then attestations. Attestations provide context about the various state and provide other usefulness. So even though you have an ABI that has the function call, an attestation says, is this function call verified? Is it audited? Does this function call interact with multiple assets or just one? Is this function call audited by Halborn versus Certic? Nice. And these are kind of information that aren't basic deployment facts, that aren't about interfacing, but it's about additional contextual supportive data that might be helpful for a user. And then last is predecessors, which is a more complex addition that's really supposed to speak to the interactions that might happen with that smart contract within the ecosystem. It's really about that mapping of the ecosystem. So as though this contract does interact with Aave or with Compound, and therefore has a dependency on oracles or on the price of AVAX and things of that nature. So having this kind of interaction provides now a foundation for not just mapping the ecosystem, but also for better understanding the impact and the risks that are associated with interacting with a specific smart contract or smart contract call. So and then normally there's a workshop exercise I do, we'll do it if necessary. But basically, we always provide the opportunity for people to contribute to refining the way that our smart contract list standard works. We currently have some example schemas that we've created based on the Avalanche network that we're continually refining, and we're talking to various people. So we kind of have deployment facts they might care about, attestations they care about, predecessors or interactions that matter to them. And that allows us to continue to refine this option so that eventually it can be integrated to things like MetaMask, into other exchanges, into other applications, because it's an open standard to be leveraged and utilized by everyone. And that was the quick run through of what FiHub is building as part of its dashboard for interfacing, but using this underlying infrastructure that we believe is vital to the entire Web3 and DeFi space.
Amazing. Awesome, dude. We have a question on the Twitter space. Let me disconnect and resource it and see if I can get him on here. Hold on a second. All right, well, he's gonna gear up. I'd love to know where can people go to contribute.
Yes. So the easiest way to start contributing, I think, is to either reach out via this email, or you can follow FiHub on my FiHub on Twitter. We have a lot of dialogue that we source it through there. More than happy to share people the GitHub repository. Our FiHub experience is still working. We're still mapping out the ecosystem. So that's really what I'm focused on right now, is actually taking our schema and our structures and methodically crafting together what the entire ecosystem looks like. And I'm really excited about bringing that, because then we'll be able to launch the full FiHub experience. But the smart contract list, we're interested in any protocol, any platform that's interested in abstracting out this experience so it's better for users to participate, to modify, to have a discussion, so as we can come to a standard that works for everybody.
Great. I have a follow-up question, which is, do you have any inclination to interact with like LLMs or any AI models that people can just straight up ask?
Yes. So right now, the way I'm approaching it is I'm actually using AI to support me in the mapping out of the ecosystem. So the goal is, once we have the schema, that schema will be accessible because it'll be in the JSON data, so people can be able to pull out information from it that way. So I believe that the growth of these AI solutions are going to be very beneficial once we actually have the index and the aggregation of this relevant data together inside of a place that can be actually a useful source of truth.
Great. And this is entirely open source?
Yes.
Amazing. Is this like supported by a foundation?
No, it's actually, I mean, everything's coming out of the FiHub pockets, and the work that Snowball contributed. We are open to additional people supporting in whatever resources way they come, but we just saw it was a necessity for this space. There isn't a standard, that there isn't an approach that people have solidified to really resolve the user interface issues that we have. And we believe that, based on our experience, if no one else is going to do it, we can do it. And now we're just trying to continue to amplify what we're building, and provide people an opportunity to contribute, to work together, to build it in a way that meets everyone's needs. And that's why I appreciate this opportunity to be in this conversation, because I'm surrounded by brilliant minds that are building fantastic things. And I believe that hearing and seeing this, that they will understand the need for this in this space, and hopefully understand how it can be utilized, and want to see it done in a way that matches their particular intrinsic interests.
That's great to hear. Jamari, can you discuss a little bit about your strategy for integrating into the core wallet?
Yeah, so like the core wallet, for example, one of the things, I actually had an early conversation with them, and I mean, they have a lot of work that they're trying to refine. But the idea is the similar way that token lists are brought into the core wallet, which allows them to show the actual logo that a token might have, are connected to other vital information. We believe that the integration of this smart contract list will work the same, so that when someone's signing a contract, that they'll be able to see additional information about that contract. See that, oh yes, this contract is audited by XYZ according to this person's smart contract list, or that this function call is not within the current registry. So you can still do it, but just know that no one from this particular body has seen it before, and it's a little bit riskier because of that. That is the way that we're looking at the integration into core wallet, really at the level of being an integration that provides more context to the behavior of people as they're making transactions.
Great. Okay, so it'll be some sort of open source integration.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let me take this question from the gentleman on Twitter here. All right, you have the floor, sir. Youngest Salim. All right.
automation and reliability of the blockchain into financial transaction, the execution of protocol, particularly in DP.
What's your question, sir?
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Smart contract bring the best of automation and reliability of the blockchain into financial transaction and the execution of protocol, particularly in DeFi.
Yes, sir. What's your question?
Slide make DeFi and accessible for everyone.
Sorry, his audio was a little unintelligible.
Just a little bit. Were you able to grasp what he was trying to state or ask?
No, I was not.
Alas.
I think he's just. I think we might have been trolled. So I'm not sure. In any case, what do you see as sort of next steps? Like, how can people bootstrap this? It seems like a massive undertaking. How can people help?
Yes. So, I mean, from the undertaking perspective, really the thing that I like on my process right now for mapping is currently this. Just a little bit insight. I look at an asset. Let's say it's DAI on side the Avalanche network. So I go to DAI and then I look up the holders, and then I look for smart contracts that are holding the DAI token, because majority of these contracts are custodial. Are not, even if they're non-custodial, they're basically taking the tokens within their contract. So therefore, that narrows it down to either multi-sigs that have DAI or smart contract or other smart contracts that are doing some operation on that DAI. And then from there, I can look at the function calls that are bringing those tokens into it and working backwards until I get to an EOA or external owned address. And that provides me now a mapping of function calls between an EOA and two smart contracts that can then be compared against other ones that can be aggregated into an understanding of how that token is flowing through the ecosystem. And then once you have that flow, you actually have the smart contract deployment facts, which are already part of the experience, the functions, which is part of the ABI, and then now you just need to layer in your attestations as well, because even the predecessors actually can be identified at that point, because you can look at the interactions between that contract and other ones in the function calls. So then you're just left with the work of people like Halborn, Certic, and other auditors. I just threw out the two that I knew off top of my head. I believe there's the other ones, Paragon, parameters. There's a lot of auditors out there. I just know two off the top of my head. And then they have them provide services to provide attestations, pull from the various information sources that are already out there, look at rec news, but pull out information from there if it matches that, and then also compare against existing bytecode. So if something's a Uniswap v3, and it's using the same bytecode, you can then say, okay, is the bytecode the same or is it different? If it's different, well, it's like this isn't a clean fork, and then you can provide like attestations about what has changed. That's kind of the process that we're taking right now towards the mapping. And anybody that is interested in helping automate, speed up that process is more than happy to reach out to me or anyone within the FiHub Snowball ecosystem who's working on this and help us to bring this to fruition inside of a faster manner. I don't know. I feel like I'm being more succinct than I normally am. Like, how long are we supposed to be on? Is this 30 minutes or an hour? Because I'm being real succinct if it's an hour. I think I lost you. All by myself, I wanna be by myself. I think I'm gonna.
My apologies. Something happened with my connection. We can just end it short. We can just keep it short if you'd like.
Yes, no. I mean, I'm a talker, but I mean, I did cover the specific points about what we're building and where we're trying to go. I'm more than happy to give Gab, but I just
No.
want to be
No, I
clear.
think that was great. We can keep it short, man. I'm happy to have you on. It's an honor to have you, and I really look forward to helping and building what you guys are creating in FiHub. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, and thank you for this opportunity. It is
Of course.
always great. It's always great to see you. I mean, normally we're texting each other, so
Yeah.
it's always good to see your face. It's good to see you looking well.
You too, sir.
Love your painting behind you, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Well,
All right.
All the best. I hope to see you on CT. All right, I'll end the stream and end Twitter. All right, here you go.